Okay, hello guys. So, can you hear
Good
me?
Hello,
morning.
sir.
Good morning,
Hello,
sir.
sir. Good
Good morning,
morning,
sir.
sir.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. So, yeah, today is our first class. And of course, this is a probability and statistics course for section 5 students. And if there is anybody, so because I am receiving a lot of emails, so if there is anybody who is not in section 5, you may check your email. Probably you have received an email regarding your link for MT from other section. Okay, yeah. And yesterday I have I posted basically a document concerning the syllabus. You can just have a look. What is the syllabus? And we'll basically follow one book, which is mathematical. So this is the title of the book, Mathematical Statistics. And data analysis. This is by John Rice. So if you, yeah, so this is our, you can say, textbook or reference books, whatever. This is our textbook. Or let's say I'll mention at least two more books which you may follow. So one is probability and statistical inference, and this is by Hogg, Dennis, and Zimmerman. And one more good book is an introduction to probability and statistics. This is by Rohatgi and Saleh. So what is happening here is basically, so you can see the syllabus, and maybe the entire syllabus is not included in a particular book. So okay, somebody's microphone is on. You may just switch it off, maybe. Yeah. So these are the three books, and the entire content may not be included in one particular book. So we'll be falling from here and there, but basically you can read this book. This is a good book, and this course is a foundational course for many other courses offered from maths department or department or in some other departments like Center for Artificial Intelligence or Computer Science and any other courses. I mean, there are some other courses which are offered from other departments, and this is a prerequisite. This course is a prerequisite for those courses. Yeah, and regarding the course mechanics, okay, by the way, so this book, Mathematical Statistics and Data Analysis, this is available online. So you just have to type the title in Google and you'll get a link. So from UC Berkeley, and you can download this book and start reading it. Okay, so yeah, and regarding the course mechanics, okay, we'll have some exams like class test, which will be of course online, and there will be multiple choice questions. And I believe there will be 4 class tests, and most likely one class test is scheduled maybe in the first week of September or something. Okay, so there will be four. Yeah, I think there will be four class tests, and okay, you should attend all the classes. I should appear in all the class tests. But suppose there is a network issue, there is some other problem, you cannot attend, then you should immediately write to me or the course coordinator, Professor Somesh Kumar. So here is the course coordinator. Oh, coordinator. So he is Professor Somesh Kumar. You can also directly write to him, or you can write to me. So yeah, so if you face any kind of issues regarding exam or any other things, you can of course drop me an email. Or you can email to Professor Somesh Kumar assisting to me. That also you can do. So course coordinator is Professor Somesh Kumar. So this is the course mechanics, and I have already uploaded the syllabus. And regarding the grading scheme, okay, that is not decided yet, but what we have been following, let's say for last 5 years. Okay, so I mean, in a standard scenario, you'll have 30%, as you know, probably that 30% mid-sem, 50% from end-sem, and 10% from kind of a class test or quiz, and 10% is in the hand. I mean, I can give you some marks based on some kind of your performance in the course. So in the online mode, more or less, this is what is followed. But since we have 4 exams or 3 exams, let's say, so we'll have accordingly some. We'll trying to give some kind of weightage to each of these class tests, and then finally you'll be graded. So the thing is, yeah. So the first class test, for example, the syllabus, this will be a little bit elementary because you have already done or you have already read some stuff about probability statistics, and since this will be the introduction to probability statistics, so the syllabus will be, comparatively easier than the syllabus for rest of the class test. So accordingly, there will be some weightage. Okay, so it is not decided yet. It will be decided at the end. Yeah, so this is how you will be graded. And yeah, one more thing is I'll be recording the lectures and I'll be uploading in YouTube. Okay, so the thing is, what happened is like some students, I think last semester maybe, they've asked me to upload it in YouTube because to watch it in YouTube for some later time, let's say. So then this internet consumption will be a little less compared to accessing lectures from Microsoft Teams. So I do not know that. But anyway, so if there is another way to watch the lectures later on, you can do that. But I'll send you a link of the channel, of my channel, and I'll upload it there, and you can watch it anytime. So if everything goes, I mean, everything falls in place, so that will be, I think, fine. You can, of course, watch the lectures in YouTube. I'll send you the link. And you can also see the lectures which I gave in the next semester, because the last semester. So last semester, we already had this course, probability and statistics. And all the lectures I gave, they are uploaded in the same channel. So if you want to have a look, so you can go and watch it. Yeah, so those lectures in this time, in this semester will not be exactly the same like the last semester, but more or less it will be similar, I would say. So yeah, and if you have any questions, doubts, you should always ask me. You can always interrupt me during the lecture. That's not a problem. Yeah, and now if you have any other questions regarding this course, you can ask me.
Sir, which book we will follow the entire? We will majorly follow in the entire course.
This is the first book, Mathematical Statistics and Data Analysis. This is the book which you'll follow, the first one, the test book. These 3 books can be considered as textbooks, but basically we'll follow the first one. But as I said, there will be some some chapters or some topics will not, which probably is not there in this book, then we'll follow it from other books. But this is a fun read. I mean, if you just follow the first book, I mean, this is a good read. Because some of you, I know that you are interested to get into data analysis, data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, whatever it is. So this book is a good introduction to that. So it has a flavor of such things. What I mean by that, yeah. So there are two things. One is you can study the mathematical statistics, or let's say understanding probability or statistics in a mathematical way. Another thing is, okay, keeping in mind of the application, you develop the theory. Okay, so there are two styles, let's say. So the first book, this book follows the style that, okay, keeping in mind that we have to do data analysis or statistics of data. So focusing on that, so they develop all the topics. So there are examples related to data and other things. So that will be a fun read, I think. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Sir, what will be the grading system?
What will be the credit?
Grading system.
Grading scheme. Okay, so it is not decided yet, but see, the thing is, I mean, what we try to follow is the way it should be. I mean, what will be the mechanism for the grading? Ultimately, it should follow some kind of a distribution, which is, let's say, standard normal, or some kind of a thing, like which is expected, I would say. Okay, we'll discuss some problems maybe during the course. Okay, so this grading thing, like how one should be graded, how the students should be graded, how the performance should be evaluated, let's say. Okay, so ultimately, so that ultimately we'll have some kind of a distribution. Okay, distribution of marks, let's say distribution of grades, such that, I mean, this is what is expected when you have a large data. For example, when we have more than or close to 1,500 students. So in this course, this time there are 1,500 students, and we are having 7 sections. So yeah, so 1,500 data points, let's say, the grading, so let's say, and then kind of like how many are A, EX, B, C, D, so on. So based on that, you can draw a kind of a distribution curve, and then it should follow something which is expected. Yeah. So if we take a large population, so if you have a large population, let's say, and then how it is expected to have such kind of a distribution in a performance matrix. So this is what we'll follow. Yeah.
So when are the 4 class tests are going to happen?
Okay, that will be. I will announce that in the class. So I think the first test is the first week of September. I'll let you know the exact date and time, and all the exams will be conducted during the class time. So there will not be any class with other exams or anything else. So I think the first week of September, maybe on Monday. So there will be a test, but I'll let you know the exact date. I mean, what is the date?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Actually, the PDF which you have uploaded in the Teams, in that there are 3 tests scheduled.
Okay, so I said, like, I believe there will be 4, but depending on the situation, okay. So if there are 3 tests, then there will be 3 tests. The thing is that, okay, sometimes we have, suppose there is some kind of an issue, and then a lot of students are absent and so on, then.
Okay, so best 3 out of 4.
I mean, I would not, say that this is what will follow, but based on the situation, we'll tweak the things. I mean, we'll change things. Okay. So I mean, you don't know. So the thing is, like, so I mean, I cannot see. I mean, I cannot tell you what something uncertain will happen. Let's say during the exam day. Okay, something goes wrong.
Sir.
Okay, so accordingly we'll
best
do it.
3 out of 4 will be great, sir.
Yeah.
For
so
everyone.
so likely that one. But suppose somebody could not appear in 3 tests. Okay, then what will happen to that guy? Okay. So I'll not say like. Yeah. So depending on the situation scenario, we'll see like what can be done. Okay. So I'll not say like okay, so there will be 3 tests, or there will be 2 tests, or there will be, you have to appear in at least 2 tests. It is not like that. So we'll see like what will happen. I mean, it will be decided case by case. Like, I mean, yeah.
Okay,
so if
sir.
there is, yeah. So it is. I mean, this is not rigid. Okay, it is a little flexible. Yeah. Anything else?
And some grading remain relative.
Yeah, I mean, relative in what sense? That is also a question. I mean, if I tell you that it will be relative, then in what sense it is relative? Okay, so yeah, so we make it little relative, but I cannot right now. I cannot tell you like what will be the I mean, what will be the policy, because again, it depends on like how many students appear in how many exams and this and that. Based on that, we can change things. But the ultimate goal is the ultimate whatever the grading scheme is followed doesn't matter, but the grade distribution, okay, should follow some kind of a distribution. Like I said, a normal distribution kind of thing. Yeah. Anything else?
Will you provide these notes to us?
Provide what?
These notes.
Oh, a class handout. So yeah, I'll upload it. Okay. Yeah, in regular intervals, I will upload it. Maybe not today, but tomorrow, something like that. I'll do it. Yeah. After each class, I mean, based on the, I mean, sometimes what happens is I cannot upload it in right time. For example, yesterday I was trying to upload it in the file section of my team, but there it was always showing that there is an error. So I was trying to upload the syllabus. Then I had to post it. So if there is some, I mean, there's some kind of a technical issue, then depending on that, I will upload it. But hopefully every week I'll upload it. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? And if you have any doubt, you should always ask me. Okay. I always encourage you to ask. Yeah. And another thing is like, so it's a huge syllabus. In fact, if you see, it's a huge syllabus. So sometimes we'll do some fast forward. So we'll see like how we should do it, how during the course, how, I mean, how sometimes I'll be a little fast, sometimes I'll be a little slow. But if you have any doubt, okay, you should always ask me. Okay, one question is like how this course. So since you have some knowledge about probably in statistics based on your experience in, let's say, 10+2, or maybe in some other course, depending on in which discipline, which branch of engineering or science you are in, and which year you're studying. But you must have some exposure about probability of statistics. Then the question would be, okay, what difference does it make in this course? Or maybe whatever you have learned from your 10+2, how kind of how much knowledge or what extra things are added in this course. So to answer this question, let me say that, so this course is I mean, whenever we talk about probability, so there is some kind of a randomness. Okay, we'll talk about that during the course. And whatever we have studied in 10+2, I mean, you probably have observed that all the possible outcomes in an experiment, let's say. So suppose you have a data and data is generated from some practical application. And the techniques which you have studied to analyze such a data or to solve such a problem, like with the assumption that all possible outcomes or each outcome, okay, is equally likely. So yeah, so we'll not have this assumption in this course. I mean, for example, if I ask you whether you'll pass or fail, okay, so or let's say which grade you'll be getting in this course based on your some experience in previous courses. Okay, so I'll not say like the probability you're getting EX, A, B. So what is the number of gates? Let's say it is 5 or 6. So I'll not say that probability of getting EX is 1/6, getting A is also 1/6, getting B is also 1/6. So it will not be like that. So then the question will be, how do I assign probability to each of these individual outcomes? So as I said, like based on some experience, maybe like whatever have experience in previous courses, maybe based on the instructor, like based on me, like how do I grade, or based on the coordinator of this course, or so there are many factors. So it is not an easy thing. The question will be, so whenever you get some kind of a data, maybe how much, so particular, so you can consider probably, suppose you fix some individual point, you can plot it, let's say x-axis, y-axis, something like that, and x-axis represents some kind of a time. So you have a time series data, like time series determining, depending on time you get some, so let's say performance of some kind of machine, you are producing something like that. So such kind of a hardware experiment, let's say. So then what you will have is a set of data, and so let's say, let me draw it something like this. So yeah, so suppose we have this time and you have different kinds of points here, okay, based on this time 1, 2, 3. I mean, it could be 1 second, 2 seconds, 1 hour, 1 day, whatever it is. So you'll get all these points here, okay, and so for example, it could be your first semester, then second semester, third semester, or the course in all the semester, whatever it is, and then your grading and so on. So all these are, let's say, are some kind of letters. For example, your grade like EX, A, B, and so on. So then the core, the main thing about this course is it's the introduction of the concept of a random variable. I'll define what is a random variable, but let me tell you, it is not random, and it is something which is not random and which is not also a variable. So definition of random variable is not like a variable which is random. So this is kind of a notion some students have, or some people have, but this is completely wrong. Okay, there is nothing random about it, then there is nothing like a variable. This is a wrongly named thing, we can say. So this is named wrongly. Okay, so kind of a random exponent. So what random variable, and what does it do is, okay, once we have this, this is, let's say, A, B, C, D. So let's say it is EX, this is A, this is B. Instead of that, we consider this as a real line. Okay, and this is a fundamental concept of random variable. And if you do any course of data analysis or machine learning, it will start from random variable. And this is the course I will introduce you to the world of random variables. So basically, the first idea would be, in order to analyze the data, or it could be some kind of a data from some kind of social network like Twitter. So you suppose you want to analyze something like, so all the tweets, okay, well, tweets obtained from some purpose, okay. Suppose you want to understand which tweets, okay, carry, let's say, some hate speeches or hateful words, okay. So we want to do some kind of an analysis. So then, since this is not numbers, okay, so these are not numbers. So then the question is, first we'll convert this, let's say, all these objects, whatever the output is, okay, based on the situation, like say sentence, or like a word, or like grading, whatever it is. So we first have to convert these things. We have to map these things to real numbers. Like we'll represent a particular outcome as a real number, and then the mathematics will be built on. Okay. So the thing is, because we have done this calculus course, okay, so we can use the machinery of calculus in order to analyze data. So that's the basic goal. And what possibly you can do is, in that case, you can map this considering this grades like A, B, C, D, whatever it is. You can considering this as a real line. Okay, you can have this. You can have this real numbers, let's say, on this. So this is this y-axis is your data now, and these are the data points, okay, whatever it is. And based on that, maybe how many times you got EX, how many times you got A, B, C. Based on that, you can define a probability. But as I said again, it may not be a right thing to do because your performance depends on many other factors as well. For example, you are not attending classes, or maybe you have attended 50% classes, or maybe you have not studied well due to something. So there are other factors, and based on that, you have to define probability to each of these individual possible outcomes. So it is not a simple thing. I mean, it is little bit of, so it comes with experience, like how do you define probability, which cannot be explained, let's say. So this is where it differs from whatever you have studied, that everything is equally likely. So you can of course define like how many times you got A, so that will be the probability of getting A. How many times you got EX, so that will be the probability of getting EX in this course. You can of course define that. Okay, and based on that, you can have some idea, okay, what kind of grade you can expect, okay, from this course. But that may not be realistic in many situations and many real world data. Okay, then the question would be, depending on, let's say, how many courses you have done. Let's say you have done 20 courses based on your year, like which year you got in here. So based on the number of courses, okay, your grading distribution can also change. So then the thing will be like, okay, how do I define the probability of getting a particular grade? So that comes with experience and some other factors which will be calling features, okay, for doing a data analysis thing or doing machine learning or any kind of thing. So then what is the feature vector? So that means it is a single number may not be a good representation of your data. Like a real number need not be a good representation. Like how many times you got EX, it need not be a good representation to define the probability of getting EX in this course. So you have to probably include some other kind of features, okay, associated to a particular grade. Maybe number of classes or number of time you have spent to understand the content of the course and so on. So based on that, so these things will be, then little bit complicated. So you need some advanced topic to understand how to analyze a multidimensional data, for example. So it is one data, but it is represented as a vector. Okay, vector means it's a number of real numbers. Okay, it is like you have studied in calculus, R square, R3. So let's say this of 1xy, or it is xyz. So based on that, okay, you can have some multidimensional data, and then how to do a data analysis. Okay, so but in this course, we'll see like some fundamental random variables we'll be talking about, and we'll see how to define such kind of probability. And if you define some kind of probability approximate each of these outcomes, then what we can infer from that distribution. And suppose you have, so this is how it will go. And suppose you assume some kind of a distribution without putting any experience to it, or we are putting any knowledge about your previous experience, let's say. Suppose you assume that it will be like that, and then whether you are right or wrong, or what kind of inference, okay, or what kind of things which you can say about this assumption, like about the distribution of the data. So that we'll be discussing in this course. So
Excuse me.
Yes.
So on the x-axis, we are putting the factors affecting the grades, right? Means x, y, z. Sorry, y, z, x, z, and x, z, and all axes. Like on the y-axis we have grades, and on all other axes we have factors affecting grades, right?
No, what I said is, okay, so it may be T1, T2, or it may be whatever it is. And based on that, you have this grade. It may be your course number, whatever it is. Or maybe first year, what is your average CGPA, something like that. I mean, something, you have a data, okay, but this data is produced based on some time. Okay, maybe then the first semester, second semester, so on. So, and then you are getting this, okay, this data. It can represent something, okay. It need not be any part. I mean, based on whatever way you want to interpret it. So data is in a hand, and suppose you know how this data is obtained, and based on that, you can have some x-axis, y-axis, or you you may be having x-axis, y-axis, z-axis, and so on. You may have a multidimensional data also. So it is obtained from some kind of an extent, from some kind of a real, from a real scenario, and then based on that you have plotted it. Okay, and sometimes you will maybe the data is so huge. Okay, it is different to access all the data. Let's say it is of magnitude, let's say 10 to the power, or maybe 2 to the power some 15. Okay, so if you even do not know how I mean what are exact data points, but you have some idea about the data, like let's say it will form kind of an umbrella structure if you plot it in the kind of a three-dimensional data, so kind of an umbrella structure. So yeah, so some kind of a surface. Okay, so something like that. You have this, and then you are trying to infer some characteristic of the data, some properties of the data in order to analyze the data, to make some kind of decisions. Okay, you have to analyze the data. So then the question would be, okay, what is possible? I mean, what should be the definition of a probability of a particular possible outcome? Or suppose you are not bothered about a particular outcome, you don't care. You are only bothering about a set of outcomes. So this is what is called an event. Okay, so you are only interested about, let's say, suppose it is a production house and you are producing, let's say, some kind of an item, let's say pen, okay, or refill, something like that. Then maybe whether the length is varying or length is fixed for each pen that you produce for the particular company. So the length varies means you are only interested about, let's say, 0.5 to 0.51 or 0.52, something like that. So it is in the range. Okay, it is in the range. You don't care about an individual outcome. That can also happen. So in that case, we'll be talking about probability of those events, like what is the probability that my possible outcome, okay, will be inside a set. So that this set is called an event. So what is the probability of an event? So sometimes we will see when the possibility is infinite or very, very large, you don't care about individual outcomes. You only care about a set of outcomes. Then the question will be, okay, so for example, like in the sense of grading things, I can say whether it will be getting a grade less than C or more than C, or less equal to C or more than C, let's say, something like that. So this is a set then. So you are not bothered about whether I will get exactly B or EX or A. I only care about whether I will be getting more than C or not. So then this is just a set. Then the question will be, okay, how to define the probability for the set? So depending on the situation, you may sometimes want to do an analysis based on sets of data. I mean, it is a set of sets, which is called a set of possible events. So then the question, the idea, from individual event, from individual outcome, so to a set of possible outcomes. So then you will be talking about event, probability of a possible event. Okay, so this is how things are done. And in fact, you'll see later on during the course, these are all in the beginning. It is important to know what is an event, this and that, and what is the possible outcome. In fact, what is the sample space and this and that. I will be defining all these things. But later on in this course, you will see these are not very, very important. Okay, what is important is about some kind of a guess about the distribution of the data, which you will be defining. And there will be a random variable associated with the data. So this is much more important rather than knowing sample space. In the beginning, we'll talk about sample space, this and that, because this is foundation. And once you understood that, then you will see that, okay, your assumption will be, okay, there is a sample space, but I don't care about that. I have this data based on something, and then I have to do an analysis. So that we will also see in this course. But in order to understand things, in order to develop a language of probability, so you have to understand in the beginning what is sample space, what is the sample space corresponding to a problem, what is an event corresponding to a problem. Okay, because you have to solve a problem. So based on that, you have to define an event. Okay, and you have to calculate the probability of that event. In the beginning, this is much more important, but towards the end, you'll see, okay, it is not that much of importance because you have to analyze the data without knowing the sample space, or you don't care about samples because you don't know it. Okay, so sometimes this could also happen, and then the question will be how to deal with this. So the central object here, the central concept here in this course, or in any other courses, I mean, which is later on you'll study probably, is actually the random variable. And then there will be, we'll be defining all this, but what is the distribution of the random variable? Okay, then you will see nothing matters. What matters is the concept of function or concept of vector. There are two things in probability. One is concept of vector. In fact, what is the concept of a non-negative vector, and what is the concept of a function, and how to deal with these functions. These functions could be very, very complicated. So ultimately, it boils down to calculus later on, or some algebra later on. And in the beginning, okay, we'll have to build up the concepts, and we'll be talking about many things, many definitions, because we need to know all this. Yeah, because in order to understand what is a random variable, we need to know this basic stuff, basic things, and based on which we'll be defining what is a random variable. And then once I know random variable, concept of random variable, then we'll be only talking about functions defined based on those random variables. Yeah. Okay, so this is what you can expect from the course, and basically, yeah. So how to analyze a random variable in that case? Then that will be the question. Okay, so yeah, so we'll start. So this title of the book is Mathematical Statistics and Data Analysis. It's like we study probability in order to ultimately dealing with statistics. Okay? And the theory that we'll be studying, probability theory, the way we'll, because probability theory, okay, before let's say in the beginning of 1900, it was interpreted differently, and so subject also grows, right? So the framework we'll be doing in this course is developed by a Russian mathematician, whose name is Kolmogorov. So his name you should know. Okay. So yeah, and we'll be studying probability theory because we would like to study mathematical statistics. And what is statistics? So statistics is like concerned with developing methods and its applications for collecting or analyzing, interpreting some quantitative data, okay, such that some reliable decision can be made. Okay, that is what is the purpose of studying probability. So in order to do, you can say just directly that in order to do, to perform some kind of analysis of data. Okay, and so that there are two things. So I'll start with the basic thing. Suppose you have a sample space. What is the sample space? I'll define later on. But let sample space, we have an idea about sample space. This is just a set of possible outcomes. Okay, and in a practical situation, it is always finite. But when we are doing mathematics, it could be infinite as well. And because the thing is, as I said, when you have a large data, large is a very vague word. How much is large? That is a very important question. Okay, and that's a good question actually. How much large is large actually? Okay, and again, the concept will be depending on the scenario. So when it is large, let's say large can be considered as, let's say, 1,000 in some cases. It can be considered 10,000 in some cases, and so on. So depending on the problem, once you have a large data, then the question will be, can I suppose it can be approximated, okay, by some kind of a phenomena which has infinitely many possible outcomes, and can that be then mapped into that kind of a problem where I have infinitely many data? So whenever you will be dealing with real data, it is always finite. But we need to know what we have to do for infinite data, because your data, real data, can be large. Depending on the context, will have this large number, something. Okay, maybe 10,000, maybe 1 lakh, or whatever it is. So in general, as I said, if everything is finite, let's say, so let's say you have finitely many possible outcomes. And let's say you have a set of outcomes here, set of possible outcomes. Okay, and let's say set of all possible, and let's say another set S. This is a set of all possible outcomes, which is actually called the sample space. So our basic sense of probabilities, so set of possible outcomes. So then our basic sense of probability, so everything is finite here. we define it like this. The probability of A is nothing but number of elements in A divided by number of elements in S. This is what we have studied, okay, before coming to this course in most of the cases, most of the times, okay. So it is just by counting the number of elements in A divided by number of elements in S, or S is a set of all possible outcomes. But we'll see later on that this need not be the case in all the occasions. Okay. So yeah, so this, let me define that this is what is called a sample space. Sample space for any kind of random experiment. Okay. What is a random experiment? In a random experiment, the outcomes are not certain. An experiment. So the random experiment can be defined as an experiment whose outcomes, okay, cannot be predicted with certainty. Okay, and this is informal because we do not know actually what is randomness. Let me fairly say frankly, nobody knows in this world what is random, because whenever we are dealing with some kind of a data, we are always assuming something. Okay, the pure randomness, we do not know how to interpret it. Whenever you define this probability for certain outcomes, this is based on something. It is not completely random. Completely random thing cannot be defined or cannot be perceived, let's say. What is actually randomness? But here, the operational meaning of randomness is, I am not certain with this. Now you can ask me some basic questions. Suppose I throw, or I let's say, I toss a coin, okay? Now this is classical mechanics. Okay, so you have an object, you are tossing it, means you are putting some kind of force, you are exerting some kind of energy and so on. So classical mechanics says you should know actually what is the outcome. I mean, so depending on the position of the original of your coin, the energy you exert when you are tossing the coin, based on that, you should be able to predict, okay, what is the outcome. But in the realistic scenario, we don't know what is exactly happening. So that's why we say, okay, with probability half, maybe when it is the coin is unbiased. Okay, so this is another way to define probability. So you can say like, okay, suppose assume that it is unbiased, then we'll have the probability half. So this is what is called the frequency interpretation of probability. Okay, so number of times you perform. So number of times you perform the experiment for a long time. And based on that, you have said, okay, so about 100 times you toss the coin, and then you define, okay, this thing. Probably it is half, or maybe it is not half because the coin is not unbiased, it is a biased coin, so on. But there may be experiment where first time it is happening, but you do not have the opportunity to repeat the experiment many number of times. So suppose somebody will give birth to a child. Okay, and this is the first time she is giving birth to a child. Now, what is the probability will be a boy or a girl? Okay, so these kind of questions, like where you do not have the opportunity to repeat the experiment, then the question will be, how do you define the probability in that case? Okay, so this is, I would say, the drawback of frequency definition of probability. Like I gave you an example of you're getting how many times you got AX, but A or B or whatever it is. So frequency definition of frequencies definition of probability. So this is nothing but this number of times you get this probability. Okay. So what is random experiment? Basically, random experiment means I'm not certain what is going to appear. But as I said, physics. So this is a good question, and you should think about it, because the classical physics says, okay, you can of course tell. Just you have to model this particular dynamics. Okay, how the coin, okay, position of the coin. Let's say, okay, how much energy, what is the initial position, what is okay. So based on this parameter, you must say what is the outcome of the probability. But let me tell you another story. If you take the coin very big, so it's a 5 kilo coin, let's say. Okay, its weight is a 5 kilogram. Now, if you want to throw or toss the coin, then I'm sure that you'll be able to say whether it will be head or tail. Because you already know how much time you can roll it, because it is heavy. Instead of 5 kilograms, you can take 10 kilogram as well, or 50 kilogram as well. That does not matter. You already know. So whenever I am saying a coin, I'm not associating any weight to it. Okay. And instead of this coin, I can also say it is a very small coin, like a quantum particle, subatomic particle, something like that. Then the question is whether it will be head or tail. And then the question will be different. So it will come to then not classical mechanics because it is a subatomic particle. So it has to be quantum mechanics. Okay. And quantum mechanics, if you have studied, I think you must have studied in physics 1 or physics 2. So then the question is, there is Heisenberg principle. And it says you cannot, okay, cannot make measurement of two different properties, okay, with high accuracy. So if one is accurate, the other one is less accurate because of this uncertainty relation, this uncertainty principle. Okay, so like the momentum, or let's say the position. Okay, so that means basically what is happening is, even if I say that you can measure how much energy you exert, what is the position, you may not be able to measure it accurately. So there is the basic assumption. So assumption is, I was assuming earlier that I can measure, okay, the parameters when you are tossing the coin. But now I'm saying the coin is very, very small, so you can't measure it. Then the question will be, it becomes a random variable. It's a random experiment now because you cannot measure it. So you, of course, you do not know what is going to appear, whether it is head and tail. So that means probability theory, in fact, the concept of probability is a very basic thing, okay, in order to interpret some kind of a reality. Okay, but you do not have any measurement device to measure certain things, to measure certain parameters, how this data is obtained. That's why it is unpredictable. That's why you cannot predict it precisely. That is why it is not deterministic, and we are calling it random. In true sense, it need not be random, but since it is our inability to precisely determine what is the possible outcome. So probability theory gives you a language, or let's say gives you a way, okay, to interpret or to analyze such data or possible outcomes of such random experiments. Okay. Now, when I say this S is a set of possible outcomes, so let me give you an example. Let's say you are rolling a pair of dice. Okay. We are playing Ludo, let's say, suppose, or something you are playing where there are 6 faces, let's say, or maybe a dice with 3 faces, okay, 1, or maybe 4 faces, whatever it is. And 2 times means what will be, how do you define, how to interpret its sample space, okay? So then for the first die, it will be, let's say if you have a standard die, so this is just an example. So rolling a pair of dice. So you have basically 1 die 1. Okay, so possible outcomes is like from 1 to up to, let's say, 6 faces. You have die 2, then you have 6 faces, and then what is the sample space here when you are rolling pair of a die? So the sample space will be all such pairs of numbers x, y, such that 1 is less equal to x, less equal to 6, 1 is less equal to y, less equal to 6. So this is your sample space now. Okay, now you may ask many questions. Suppose, what is the probability? Okay, what is, so this is my sample. So now what I want to calculate is, what is the probability that sum of the outcomes is 7? Okay, so if you want to do that, so I'm not considering any possible individual outcome. I'm talking about probability, which is a subset of the sample space. Okay, and such thing, like which is a subset of this S, is known as an event. Okay, so there are 3 definitions here which I must write here. One is what is called a sample point. Sometimes I'm calling it an outcome, but you can also say it is a sample point. So this is an element of the sample space. Okay, and then I say an event. What is an event? Associated with the experiment, it is a subset subset of the sample space. Now, and this is a very big thing because we are building the concept, so we have to ask some fundamental question. So if I say it is that, I said event is a subset of a sample space. I did not say any subset of the sample space is called an event. There is a difference. Okay. I said event is a subset of the sample space. That means whatever you are interested in, going to calculate probability of something. So that something has to be a subset of the sample space. This is what I said. Then the question will be, if I consider set of all events, okay, what is the structure of that? I mean, so this is what is called the algebra of events. Okay. So what is the set of possible events? I can calculate, I can talk about probability. So probability now, you see, you get a flavor. Probability, I have to talk about a function, like probability is like a function. Okay, I'll be doing that in a minute. But before that, let me tell you a little bit about the sample space, because we'll be talking about subsets of the sample space. Sample space can be of two different types because it is a set. All that is called a space. Okay, because the difference between a set and a space is like whenever we'll be using the word space in the entire world of science and engineering, that means it's a set with an additional structure. So the points are some meaningful corresponding to something. Okay, the sample space is not any set. Okay, it is a set associated with a random experiment. Let's say that's why we're calling it a space, not a set, not a sample set. We're calling it a sample space. And whenever we have a sample space, there are two kinds of sample spaces. That means there are two kinds of sets basically. Sample space. One is called countable, or let's say, countable, or sometimes also called discrete. COUN, countable. And another one is uncountable, sometimes called, so let me write it here, discrete, and sometimes also called, and other one is uncountable, which is also called continuous. So what is discrete, what is continuous, what is countable, what is uncountable? Countable means, countable is also of two types. One is finite, so your set is finite, set of sample points. Or it could be countably infinite. See, all finite, all practical real data are actually finite, but we have to consider this, and you will understand why, okay, later on during the course. But when we are building the concept due to Kolmogorov, so the countable set can be finite or countable. What is countably infinite? That means you can start counting, but you can never reach to an end. For example, on natural numbers, you can start counting 1, 2, the first sample point, the second sample point, third sample point, and so on. But you cannot reach to an end. It goes on infinitely, infinite. Infinite times it goes on. So number of natural numbers is countable infinite. And what is uncountable infinite? You cannot even start counting, let's say. You do not have a well-ordered set, meaning, so like set of real numbers, like an interval. Okay, for example, if I ask you, what time does this class end? Now, it depends on me, okay, but it can end, let's say, at 9.59 seconds, or in between 9.55 to 10. Now, in between 9.55 and 10, there are a lot many seconds. In fact, it is the total interval. We cannot measure this precisely. More than second, it could be millisecond, nanosecond, and so on. Okay, so we cannot measure it properly because we don't have the device to measure it, because it is quantum in that case. We don't know all the numbers in between 9.55 and 10. So we don't know. So it is completely an interval. So that is what is called uncountable. So number at which point of time, we do not know. There is infinitely many possibilities, and this is a complete an interval. A natural number is not an interval. Natural number is like, if you remember this real line, okay, we have 0 here. Here all the positive real numbers extended, let's say, infinitely in the right hand side, and the left hand side, this is finally extended to this one. Left hand side. So it is 1, 2, 3, 4. It is not interval. They are discrete. Points are discrete. But whenever I say interval, that means it's a completely an interval like this, set of all points inside this. Okay, so starting from 9.55 to 10. Okay, so there's an entire interval, and here it could be anything. So all the points. So if you just put a microscope on this interval, then you will see a lot of points. Again, you increase the power of this microscope. Okay, then you will see again many points. So there are many points. So this is infinite. Even you cannot start counting, meaning you don't know exactly. Let's say I'm starting from 1 to 2. You do not know what number immediate next to 1. You don't know that. If I ask you what is the number which is immediate next to 1, you cannot find it out because you don't know. We cannot say it is 1.00001 because if you say 1.00001, then also okay, between 1 to 1.00001, okay, there are infinite numbers because you can just add and divide by 2. So 1 plus 1.0001 divided by 2, again you get a number which is again far more close to 1 than 1.0001. So you do not know. So this is a complete interval. So there are all possible points which are inside this, and this is uncountable because you cannot count because you do not know which is next, which is the next point. You do not know, which is not the case when you have this natural number. So there is a fundamental difference between countable and uncountable. But the basic thing we need to know that countable could be finite and countable many. Countably infinite meaning it is mapped to a natural number. The first element, the second element, the third element, the fourth element. I can map. I need not reach to an end. In fact, I'm never going to reach to an end if it is infinite. But I know that first one, second one, third one, and so on. And whenever it is uncountable, it means my sample space is an interval, or like the entire real line. Entire real line is also an interval, like minus infinity to infinity. There is also an interval. So whenever we'll be talking about our union of some intervals, the possibility also could be between 8 to 8.5, 9.45, 45 to 9.55, or 9.55 to 10, and so on. So there could be union of some intervals as well. So then it is uncountable. So possible sample points are lying inside an interval. So then I will say it is uncountable, or a continuous sample space. Continuous means there is no gap. Points are not discrete. And here, the points are discrete. So either it is countably infinite or countably finite. Okay. So sample space could be of two types. But anyway, real data is always finite. But you will see the machinery, but data is so huge that we cannot use the machinery because there is a problem of counting as well. For example, I want to calculate something. I want to count something. Okay. And where there is a factorial n, or let's say NCR, okay, or NPR, okay, the permutation and the combination. But factorial n is a very big number when n is big. We cannot even compute it. So even if I know the formula, how to get the probability, but it is difficult to find out because n is very, very large. So I cannot have an interpretation where it is finite. I have to have some kind of integration, something else which is mapped to continuous domain or continuous sample space, and then possibly I'll be able to calculate my probability. And this is very, very fundamental in data analysis. You'll see if you read any book on machine learning, there will be a lot of integration science and there will be a lot of random variables. Okay, and for example, noise. Okay, what is noise means? Suppose you are measuring something. Okay, but it is not accurate, as I said. It is not accurate because it is our inability to measure it accurately. Then the question will be how much noise could be there? That means how much far it is from the exact measurement. It will be something. And when you are having this something for all possible sample points, so let's say 1,000 or 10,000, then how this all noises can be modeled? Okay, can be sampled from some kind of a range. And then you will see that in all practical situation, almost all practical situation, this is considered as a normal random variable. Okay, so it will be picked from a normal distribution. We'll talk about that later on. But the thing is, even if your real data is finite, you need to go to continuous domain. You need to go to uncountable domain because it is our inability to compute some numbers like factorial n. We cannot do it. using our computing system. Okay, so that's why even if it is not, it will not occur in real life, but whatever happens in real life, we have to bring it up to this domain, and then we have to analyze it. Okay, so this is very, very important. Okay, now I was talking about events. So this is my sample space. There are all possible events, and any subset is an event. Okay, then the question is, so I defined event as what? A subset. And the question will be, and this is a very fundamental question, that what are events? What are all possible events? Okay, so which subsets can be considered as event? Okay, and this is a very, very fundamental question. Now see, suppose I name them A1, A2, A3. See now, whenever I am using A1, A2, A3, that means I'm associating these events, okay, with natural numbers of A1, A2. So index AI, I could be a natural number. That means I'm assuming it is countable infinite, but it need not be the case. There could be. So if I ask you how many subsets are there, we can consider from -1 to 1, this entire interval, and there are uncountably many, because there are uncountable numbers here. Even if you consider all numbers as singleton sets, which you don't know, by the way, but that has to be uncountable also. So if whenever I write A1, A2, A3, so there is an index which is varying, even if it is infinity, that means it is varying, or it is considering numbers for natural numbers. So that means I'm assuming that is countable infinite. So I need not do that, but let me do it. So what I'm doing, I'm writing it A1, A2, A3, and so on. Let me be a little flexible here. Let's say A1, A2, A3. Then the question is, A1 union A2 is also a subset of S. So do we consider it as an event or not? A1 union A2 union A3, or A1 intersection A2 intersection A3. For example, let's say, rolling the dice, that example. Now, if I ask you, what is the probability that sum of the possible outcomes is either 7 or 3? So then it's a union of two sets. My fundamental events are what? It is 7, the sum is 7, and the sum is 3. So I'll have two possible subsets of the sample space. Then I'm taking the union of it. So I'm having a new event. So that means whatever it is, the set of all possible events, that must be in a mathematical language, has to be closed under union. That meaning closed meaning here, that if I consider a set of events, if I pick any 2, 3, whatever numbers, okay, how many, whatever it is, union of that also, in fact, if I take infinitely many such, countable infinitely many such events, their union also has to be an event. So set of all events must satisfy some property. Another example is, let's say, some of these outcomes, like the dice example, okay. Either I consider earlier I considered 7, the sum must be equal to 7. Next time I'm considering it should not be 7. That is also an event. So that is an event where sum of the outcomes of the pair of dice is not 7. Now, in a set theoretic language, what is it? A set theoretic language, what I'm asking you this question, that I have a sample space, and this is my set. This is my event, which is sum of the outcomes is 7. And I am saying now not 7. That means I'm talking about the complement of this. So that means if something is an event, its complement also must be an event. Okay. And another event is what? S itself. The sample source itself is the same. So I don't care about any possible outcomes or any particular subset. I'm bothering about entire set. What should be its probability? That is probability of happening something, at least some outcome. Okay. So that means I'm talking about probability that the experiment should be of an event, and the event should be at least some point, or the possible outcome should be some point inside that set. So that means I'm considering the entire sample space as an event. And in fact, these are the 3 properties of the set of all events. In mathematical term, it is called a sigma field. But let me not, okay, so let me say set of, or let's say set of all possible events, or sometimes it's called a sigma field. Okay, why it is called a sigma field or not, that questions will not discuss here because we have to do many things. Okay, but since we have to mention this name because sometimes maybe you are reading some book in machine learning and there is a word sigma field. Okay, because they are defining many such sigma fields for many experiments and they are doing some kind of an analysis. But the basic understanding of this thing is what is a sigma field? This is a set of all possible events. It need not be all subset of the sample space, but it serves my purpose. What is my purpose? That an event should be expressed or maybe interpreted as union of some events, or intersection of some events, or complement of some events. And if I know the probability of one particular event using some kind of a machinery of the definition probability or properties of the probability as a function, I will try to find out probability of union of events, probability of intersection of events, probability of something which is an event, which may be expressed in terms of union or intersection or complement of some other events. And I know the probabilities of those events. Then how do we calculate it? So set of all possible events must have a structure. Okay, this is due to Kolmogorov. Okay, the first thing is, this is the first property. First property is the sample space must be, so let me denote this set as denoted by some f. Okay, and f must be in this set f, and if some subset is there in that set f, then complement of a, that means it is s minus a. This is a set minus, okay, notation. Complement of this must be also in this set. And third is union. So if some aj is in here for j equal to 1 to up to infinity, which is some bigger equal to 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, so on, then union of this aj, j equal to 1 to infinity, that should be also in f. Then I will call this is a sigma field, this f is a sigma field, and I'll be treating this as a set of all possible events. So in my definition, okay, of random experiment, question is, what are the set of possible events? And the answer is set of possible events, which is a set of sets, because event is a set and it is a set of events. That means it is a set of sets. Okay, and this set of events is called or known as sigma field. It must have these properties. That means S must be there, the entire sample space should be there. So I can talk about probability of an event. That means I can talk about probability of S. Or in a practical situation, suppose I have to calculate probability of some event B, and I do not know, but I know how to compute this. But I know that B is union of some AJ, and I know the probability of A. Then basically this question boils down to this, and then the question will be union. So let's say the J equal to 1 to some 10 or something. Then the question is using the property of probability, which I'll be defining next. Using the property of probability, then how can I calculate this? Okay, so I can use this machinery. So whenever I have events and it is given in terms of union or intersection of something. So for example, in this properties, I did not say intersection. But intersection can be written in terms of these properties, complement and union. So that would be a good homework. If AB are in this, okay, in this sigma field F, how to show that A intersection B, for example, this should be in F. Any comment on this from anybody? How this set? So basically what I'm trying to say here is, let's say this is my S, this is my A, and this is my B. There is a non-empty intersection, this one. So I know that A union B is an event, A is an event, B is an event, S is an event. Then how this subset can be expressed in terms of unions and complement. Can anybody say this? How A intersection B can be written in terms of union of some subsets of S and complements of subset of S. Okay, so this is a homework. Think about it. Okay, this is a homework. Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah, go ahead.
we can write it as A union B equal to A plus B minus A intersection B. Something like that.
What you said, A intersection B is equal to A plus. See, A plus B is not
Sir,
defined.
A union B equal to A plus B minus A intersection B. Then we can find out from there A intersection B.
Okay, okay. So think about it. Okay, I'll not answer this. So think about it. Okay, and
It is actually
make,
diagram. We can.
yeah. So that's why I pictured. I mean, I draw this. So it's from this picture you try to see, and this you see like this can always be done, and that's why it is not included in this. So these are the basic fundamental properties of the set F. Okay, using these three properties, I can have many other properties. Okay, and this is how actually mathematics develop, or let's say mathematicians work. So they only consider minimal properties. Okay, and other properties can be derived from those properties. So they are not in those other properties. All the properties are not included in the definition. Only the minimal set of conditions, okay, are included in the definition. And from those minimal set of conditions, you can define many other conditions. Okay, which I'll also show you that is the same thing will be happening when I define probability. Now, so what is probability? Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, can you please repeat what is F? You defined F above.
Yeah, here. F is
Yes, a sigma field. What is sigma field?
This is just a name. This is just a name, but by sigma field I mean this one. Set of all possible events. What is event? Event I already defined. Event is related to random experiment, and there is a sample space, and event is a subset of the sample space. So whenever we are talking about probability, suppose I ask you, I give you some data and ask you to find out probability of something. Okay, because of something, to solve a problem or something, some kind of a decision or something. That means
Sir,
you have
event is user defined, no? So it can be infinite possible events for a sample space.
Yeah, it is. So that's why I said here you see the assumption. It could be infinitely many such events come there. Yeah, there may be infinitely many events. So you have the same data. Let's say, okay, so set of sample points is the data, right? Sample point. These are all data to you. Okay, some set. Some data. Now your event could be this one. Your event could be this one. And there are, let's say, infinitely many such points, okay, which are not set because I cannot draw infinitely many points. Okay. You can have this event. There is something inside this. You can have these events. You can have the entire thing as an event, whatever. You can have this event. So you have many events. But the thing is, your required event, let's say your required event is something like this. This is your required event. And you know, let's say somehow probability of this event and some other events. So then your required event can be written as, which is a box one here. This is your required event. That can be written as union, complement, intersection of some other events whose probabilities you know. Right? So the thing is, the set of all possible events associated with a random experiment must satisfy those properties. Like union should be an event, union of events should be an event, intersection of some event should be even, complement of some event should be an event, and so on. And that is what is called sigma field. That means all possible event associated with the random experiment is a set of sets, a set of subsets of the sample space, which has this following properties, like it is closed under union and complement, and the entire sample space is in that set. So there can be infinitely many events like this gola, like this circles. Okay, could be infinitely many. But my required thing, you'll see whenever we're talking about Bayes' theorem, then you will see a picture something like this. So this is your required event. I mean, you want to compute probability of this event, but this can be expressed in terms of other events using some notation of union, intersection, complements. And then you can use your machinery of the definition of probability for those events, which is the event is written in terms of other events, then how to calculate the probability of that. So set of all events associated with the random experiment must have this property, meaning if you have two different events, or they can have some intersection or not, doesn't matter. Like here, these two events, there are some intersection. Okay, there is an intersection here, but this event, okay, and this event, let's say they do not intersect. That is fine. But union of the events, intersection, complement, those also should be also events. Okay, otherwise this is not the right model to deal with probability. As I said, in this course we'll be doing the framework developed by Kolmogorov. Now this is defined by him, because whenever you do mathematics, you have to understand the logic behind mathematics. How does it work? Okay, so why do I need to have this property? I can have all subsets. Okay, that also you can say this is S. Let's say this is sample space, and you take power set. Power set means set of all subsets. That is also, and you will see that power set of S, okay, has also all these properties. So this is also set of, that could also be possibly a set of events. But what happens in some cases, you don't need that much big set. Because if S is big, let's say S contains 100 points, then all possible subsets of S could be 2 to the power 100. You don't need that. But whatever you need, that must be closed under all this, that must have all these properties. Because you don't bother about all possible subsets. But you must have a set of subsets, set of events, which have these properties.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, here what is the difference between power set and sigma field?
Power set is an example of a sigma field, and sigma field need not be the power set. Can we give an example? I'll come to that, but let me just write set of power set of S. Can we give an example of a sigma field example? Let's say my possible outcomes are, let's say, A, B, C, D. Now let me define my set of, can we give an example of size of subset? Let me give you. Now see, this could be a sigma field. Why? It satisfies all the properties here. Is it?
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Is that a sigma field?
It is
Yes, sir,
comprising
it is a
the
sigma.
It's a sigma.
No, it is not.
These are not the, yes. What
Because
about
this
Y, S?
second property is violated.
Yes.
Complement is not there. You see, complement of S is null set.
Null set.
Complement of A is what? B, C, D, E. Complement of C is A, B, D, E. Complement of AC also should be there. So B, D, E also should be there. And again, whatever new things you got, let's say intersection of this and this, that also has to be there. Union of this and this, that also has to be there, and so on. So you can create an example of a sigma field, which need not be the power set of all possible subsets, but it is closed under this. In fact, if I mean, to give you a trivial example, I can just say, okay, let's say it is null set and S. Then it is also a sigma field. It's a trivial example. It is closed under everything. Whatever the properties, it always satisfies that. The complement of null set is S. So null set also can be considered as an event. In fact, it is called an impossible event. Impossible event. Null set means what? It does not contain any outcome. But in order to satisfy all the properties of the sigma field or set of all events, okay, null set also has to be treated as an event. So now say here, union of these two can be the only possibility that this is also S. So everything is satisfied. There is no non-trivial subset of S here, which is included as an event. Only possibility is null set, that an impossible event, and the sample field itself. This is also sigma field, which is not the power set of S. Okay, this is an example. But again, I'm saying, yeah, that this is, in the beginning, we have to deal with all this because we are developing a concept. Why? In the next definition, you will see why it is required. Okay, but in the end, it does not actually matter. In the end, actually does not matter means you already know all these things are there. When you are talking about probability, you have a set of events. Okay, that has to satisfy all these properties. These are all there in the background. Now you are solving the problem. Why do you need to know background? Because when you are using some kind of a technique, probability, some map, some random variable, this and that you are using, unless this background is true, all those techniques will also not be true, or some of the techniques will also not be true, because it is based on these basic assumptions. So we are creating a model, because as I said, probability, let's say, can be interpreted as a model for understanding or interpreting uncertain systems, while the possible outcomes are not deterministic, cannot be predicted. But we need to have some properties, mathematical properties, they have to be satisfied. Otherwise, I cannot build up this model. So these are the basic assumptions I have to have. But towards the end, we'll see, we actually will forget all this. But we need to know all this also. Because suppose you are working in a company, you are working something, or maybe you are interested to do some kind of study, there you have to create your own model. Because the underlying model, or maybe the underlying real phenomena, okay, it is not satisfying some basic property of a given model, like a probabilistic model. Then you have to create your own model to analyze the system. How do you do that? So you must have a sense of a model. You must have a sense how should build a model, and then all you can do it. So that's why we are doing this. But at the end, you will see these are, I mean, even if you do not know this, you can do probably not a problem. But maybe you lose the reasoning, you lose the basic background of the subject. So we have to talk about this, but at the end, it has no use. And why it is useful? Because how we have developed. And these are the basic properties which have to be satisfied in order to talk about probability as a function. The probability has to satisfy some properties. The probability, actually, I'll define now what is the probability. I'll define, so this is a fundamental difference, how we have studied probability in 10+2 and how we are doing it now. There was no background. There was just methods. Here we have to deal with background, the solid background, and then based on that, we have to do it. Because when we'll be talking about, let's say, some kind of system which you have to model, you have to probably build a concept. For example, Bose-Einstein statistics. It's different from statistics. Okay, but that's a model for understanding subatomic particles. Okay, so unless you know that there how to develop a model, you cannot be a Bose. So you have to have that kind of a reasoning. So that's why these are required, but you may forget also towards the end. And then the question will be, why did I study this? We are studying this because the other properties which we'll be discussing in entire course, they all depend on this. Not directly, but indirectly, because whatever we'll be defining, function probability as a function, this and that, they have all these underlying properties. Based on that, it is defined. So the mathematical machinery works. And based on that, we are doing something. Okay. Okay, now I'll define what is probability. Okay. Correspond or associated with a random experiment. So use this now. Definition of probability. This is how you defer it. Definition of probability, or sometimes it is called axiomatic definition of probability. And axiomatic. Axiomatic means it has to, this probability, whatever way it is defined, it has to satisfy some axioms. For example, if I ask you, what is line? How do you define a line segment? Okay. Now, in order to define what is line or a line segment, you must have to include some properties of the line. So this is kind of a curve, you can say. Okay. But it is not, there is no bend in the curve. It is straight. Now, how do you interpret that? You have to say some properties of that. But somebody can say line segment is a set of points, but it is not only a set of points. Which set of points in a sense, like suppose we have this, exactly. This is a line, but this is a set of points also, but it's not an arbitrary set of points. It has to satisfy some property. So unless you have those properties, you cannot understand what, you cannot interpret what is a line. What is the difference between a line and a really curve? Really curve means a curvature is non-zero. There is a bend. Okay. So how do I define probability? I'm saying that this is an axiomatic definition because the way I will define probability, whatever object it is, it has to satisfy some properties. Then only I can define probability. So first of all, whenever I say probability associated with a random experiment, this probability, I'll treat this as a function. Because what we are interested in? We are interested in calculating probability of an event. Now, what are events? Set of all events is a sigma field. So I am trying to define then probability. This is as a function from the sigma field or the set of all events. Probability could be what? This could be a number between 0 to 1. Okay, so I am defining probability as a function from the sigma field associated with the random experiment or for the set of all possible events to 0, 1, such that it is not any function. Any function need not be a probability. Such that it has to satisfy some problem. These are the axioms. Such that, first of all, probability of any element of F is a set of all events, it has to be bigger or equal to 0. That's why I wrote 0 to 1. In fact, you can write instead of 0 to 1, you can just write set of all real numbers, doesn't matter. But it has to be bigger. So it has to be a non-negative function, meaning its values should be bigger or equal to 0. Second thing, probability of the entire sample space. So sample space can also be an event. This has to be 1. And third property, third axiom is probability of union of a j equal to 1 to infinity is the sum of the probabilities. Now see here I am writing this event as union of events. This probability of that can be computed in terms of probability of individual events, sum of the individual events. When what are those ages? There must be events but they must be disjoint events where A1, A2, AJ are mutually disjoint events of the sample space. Now the question is how to calculate probability of union of two events. So all these things can be done using these three properties. So these are the minimal axioms I need. Based on that, I'll also prove some properties. For example, what should be the probability of the impossible event null set? That has to be 0. Okay, that will prove later on using this. So these are using this property. So using these three axioms. So what is probability? Probability is a function. So if it is a function, the question will be from which set to which set? What is the domain? Domain is the sigma field associated with the random experiment. Or the domain is the set of all possible events. What is the codomain? Codomain is 0 to 1 interval. That means any number can be a probability between 0 to 1, probability of some event. And union disjoint, probability of union of disjoint events should be sum of the probability of those events. And this disjoint set of events would be countable infinite also. So it is union of j equal to 1 to infinity. So any function which satisfies this property can be treated as a probability. In fact, when is your sample space is fine? Now see, this definition, okay, is so advanced, so general that all other concepts of probability fits into this. For example, your definition of equally likely sample points, like all the probability of all possible individual outcomes is a fixed number. Let's say you have n possible outcomes, and probability of each outcome is 1 by n. It also satisfies all those properties. So this definition tells you there are infinitely many ways to define probability associated with a random experiment. If you have a random experiment, so as I said before, when you have a data, how do you define probability of an event? How do you define possibly probability of an individual outcome? You may not be interested in that. You may be only interested in defining probability of all possible events. But the way you define it based on an experience, somebody else can define it based on his or her experience. And it could be totally different. And both are probabilities. And the definition of probability allows that. So only thing you have to keep in mind is that the way you are defining probability, it has to, we are defining a function basically for all possible events to 0, 1, but it has to satisfy these properties. If one property is violated, it's not a concept of probability. The way you are defining probability is wrong. Wrong means, in a sense, that, in fact, I must tell you, probability also can be negative number, but that is not a part of the syllabus, okay? So there is also, that concept is different from this concept, okay? So we are doing it a framework here. This is due to Kolmogorov. So in our framework, probability has to be a non-negative number, which is lying between 0 to 1. And the entire sample space, probability sample space should be 1. And whenever I have disjoint union of events, probability has to be the sum of those events. These are the basic 3 properties. And using this, you can define any function, and that can be interpreted as probability corresponding to that experiment. So even if you are dealing with data, you are a different person, okay? Many different persons are defining probabilities, and they are all different, still everything is fine. And you define probability, and based on your definition, you will get some results. And analyze the data. That analysis could be wrong, because your original definition of probability could be wrong. Somebody else's probability could be better, okay? But in order to declare that to be probability, you have to ensure that your definition of probabilities corresponding to all these events, okay, is a correct notion of probability, is that you have to define the probability which must satisfy these 3 properties. Then you have a notion of probability. Okay. So what is the probability associated with a random experiment? It is a function, because I want to calculate probability of an event. So then I must be talking about probability of all possible events, which is the sigma field. Then my probability has to be defined on the sigma, from the sigma field to 0, 1, and it must satisfy these properties. So it gives infinitely many ways to define probabilities now. Based on your data, you can define anything, but you have to keep in mind that the way you are defining probability, it has to satisfy these properties. Then only a true sense that this is probability. Okay. Now, using these 3 properties, we can define many other properties of probability as a function. Okay. So properties of probability. Probability, I'm writing it in inverted comma, because probability, in a sense, that it is a function. Okay, my definition of probability. So what are the properties of these functions, which are not included but can be derived from these conditions, from these properties? First of all, probability of null set is 0. Why? Can I prove this using these 3 properties? Yes, I can do it. For example, I can say that S, so let's say my S is here. So S can always be written as union of some events which are all disjoint. You can create a partition like this. Let's say A1, A2, A3, and so on. Then I can write S to be equal to null set union AJ, J equal to all. Okay. You can write this. Oh, not a set, by the way. This is set itself, because we'll follow a standard notation here. So this is just a set. This union this. Now this is again a set of. This is again a set of collection union of disjoint events. Okay, or maybe you can say this is. Let me rewrite it, or you can just say this is A0 union AJ, J equal to 1 to infinity, and this A0 is the null set. Then according to the property of the third property of the probability of S should be is equal to probability of A naught. Okay, probability of A naught union all these edges j equal to 1 to infinity. But according to the third property, what we can write this is as sum of all this. So sum of, I can write probability of A naught, or I can take this out, and then I can write plus sum of P of AJ. J equal to 1 to infinity. But now see, this sum, this thing, this union is actually the set itself, S itself. Because null set is the ad hoc I'm using. I mean, it's just a mathematical, this is simple, but just I'm using the machinery that how you can use this. So this is basically 1, PS equal to 1. So this is basically 1. This is probability of A0. This is plus 1. The probability of A0 equal to 0. That means probability of phi is equal to null set equal to 0. Okay, so it is just simple. It is not a very big deal. Okay. Yeah, so probability of null set is 0. Now, by the way, here I must say there are two things. Okay, I said I declared phi the null set as an impossible event. And I'm calling it as an impossible event. And probability of phi is equal to 0. But you have to keep it in mind. Probability of some event is 0. It does not mean that the event is the null set. Okay, you have to keep it in mind. Because, okay, let me tell you, if the probability of an event is 0, it does not mean that the event is null set. Got to keep this in mind. Can I give an example how the probability of an event is 0?
So probability of getting negative number in set of natural numbers.
But is that an event?
Sir,
Event has to
The
be subset of
event
the
is
sample space.
not a subset of sigma.
What is your sample space? You have to first declare what is the sample space, and event has to be a subset of the sample space, and the probability of that event has to be 0. But the event is not a null set.
sir, I have one doubt. Sir, if probability of an event is 0, this means that number of that event divided by number of sample space is 0. So, and therefore it should be the number of event is equal to 0. So how is it possible that the event is 5?
Okay. See, this is what I emphasized on, that this definition, number of S in the beginning I wrote, this definition, whatever you have studied in your 10+2, it is not a general definition. Probability does not mean this always. Probability can be defined, as I said, grading. Okay, what is the probability that you will get EX or A? It does not mean that how many times you got A divided by how many grades you have. That means how many courses you have appeared. It need not be the probability. Probability depends. See, now my definition of probability is what? It is a function. Whatever way you can define the function. For example, you can of course, even if you have EX in some other course, let's say, you can also say probability of getting EX, let's say in this course, is 0. Because it did not appear in any exam, let's say. Because of something you have defined. Probability of getting EX is 0, probability of getting A is something, probability of getting B is something. All are non-zero, probability of X is getting 0. But it is not an impossible event because EX is not a null set. It is consist of one single possible outcome. So this definition that how many items you have whenever you have the set A, which is a subset of the sample space, and number of points in the sample space. This is your class 10 plus 2 definition of probability. Here we are assuming that all possible outcomes are equally likely. We have the same probability, which is 1 by n. This is only valid when you have finite number of points. If this sample space consists of infinitely many points, this is an invalid definition. If this set contains, A set contains infinitely many points, then this will be of infinity by infinity. It is not even a number. So even if it is finite, if it is infinite, it is not defined. Even if it is finite, that is only one way to define probability. But somebody else can define in another way probability, because probability for us is not a unique thing. It can be defined in many ways. That means probability is a function satisfying these properties, and any function which have these properties can be called as probability. So what you say that number of points divided by the number of sample points, it is only one way to define probability, and that will not fit in this example. So you have to create another example. You have to define another probability. You have to create another function as a probability, satisfies all these properties of the definition, and you have to find an event which has 0 probability, and the event is not a null set. You can of course create that, I mean, in any model, but I want from you, I mean, let me give you, suppose like this. So you have S, A, B, C. There are 3 possible outcomes. Okay, or let's say we are throwing let's say head and tail. But this coin is so much biased. Okay, I mean, this is not a realistic example. I could have taken a realistic example. Let's say like this: one rolling a die, 6, and you define a probability of 1. Okay, is 0 because it is so much biased. Probability of 2 is something. Let's say 0.5, and the rest you can define. And then you will see that this will be a probability satisfying all this. As sum of all this should be equal to 1. Okay, then it will be enough to define probabilities actually for a set of when the sample space is finite. Okay, and you know the probability of the individual outcomes. Okay, and sum of these probabilities is equal to 1. Then it will always satisfy the properties which I described earlier. And you can have something else like this: probability of, let's say, 2 is 0. Probability of, let's say, 1, okay, is, let's say, 0.5, or let's say 1 by 5. Probability of 3 is also 1 by 5, and so on. Probability of 6, okay, is also 1 by 5. This is also probability. This is not your standard probability, but here you have this probability of this event, which is 2, 0, but this 2 is not equal to the empty set. And this function, you can check, it satisfies all the properties of this probability. So this is a valid definition of a probability. Okay, but a non-zero event can have probability 0. So this is a little bit abstract. Abstract in the sense I'm creating an ad hoc example. It may not be the realistic situation, but there may be realistic situations like you have made the die. You have made the die in such a manufacture the die in such a way that whenever you roll the die, 2 will never appear because all other faces are so heavy or maybe so light. Okay, that will always occur. Okay, so it will satisfy all the mathematical definition of probability. You can have an event which is non-zero or non-empty, but its probability is equal to 0. So whenever I say you have to produce an example, it means you have to create a function corresponding to a random experiment satisfying all these properties, and you have to create an event whose probability is 0, but the event is not an null set. Any doubt?
So this means that this case is possible only if biased event is there, biased outcomes are there.
All models are biased. Okay, because when what is unbiased? I mean, once you are talking about equal probabilities, when it is the sample space contains infinitely many possible outcomes, you cannot define that as a probability. That's the first thing. Second thing, whenever you are defining all outcomes have equal probability, that's unbiased. But it is in practical life, this is never going to happen. It is always biased, because for any producer, you go to market. Okay, you go to market. Now you have to buy some potatoes. Now talk about the size of the potato. You go to buy anything. Okay, go to buy anything from the market. Whatever you see in the sample space, all are biased. Everything is not equal. Your fingers are not even equal. Okay, so when everything has equal properties, it is not an ideal situation. Okay, in fact, you have, if even just a minute, somebody is calling. Yeah, I'm back. So somebody was knocking my door. Anyway, so can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I was talking about is, yeah. So real world is always always biased. It is not unbiased. So you can never actually in real life you will never experience this kind of a situation where all possible outcomes are equally likely. It will never occur. So this definition is invalid actually in a practical purpose. For solving some problem in JEE, for solving some exam problems in exam, maybe this is okay. Okay, but when you have real data, most of the time you will see that this definition will not work, because this does not represent a real scenario. So that's the thing. Okay, so whenever I am asking you to give an example of probability, it means you have to give an example of a probability as a function. Like there is a set of sample points, sample space, and set of events, and some probabilities are defined which satisfy all these properties. And there is an event which probability is 0. And you can of course do that always. Okay. So it is a cooked up example. My example is a cooked up example. It may not represent any particular real scenario, or maybe it will represent a very a real scenario approximately, meaning I may not be able to manufacture any die which has this property, but you don't know that. So I have created this one. Okay, and it may be possible, but this is valid according to the definition of probability. You can always have that. Okay. Yeah, and in fact, another thing which maybe you can think about, I'll just say it here. I mean, these are all, so that's the question I started with today, is that how does it differ, this course, from your previous course? So this gives you a mathematical reasoning of why we are defining probability, what are the minimal probabilities you need to define probability, how to deal with the real situation kind of a thing. In fact, an event can have probability 1, even if the event is not a sample space. So I said probability of the sample space is 1, but I did not say that it is the only event which has probability 1. Okay, so let me just write it down. Okay. If an event.
Sir.
So your screen is not visible.
Screen is unshared.
Okay, just. I think I should stop here today, so the time is up. But let me just. I mean, I'll just write a sentence. Maybe you can think about it. If an event has probability 1, then it does not mean that the event is a sample space. The event is in the sample space. Can you create an example? Sample space S.
If I say the sample spaces, I have to buy a vegetable. But if I'm determined that I'm gonna buy a potato, then the probability of buying potato will be 1 for sure.
Now, probability you have to buy means what is that? What is the you have to buy means you will buy some potatoes. So that is the entire sample space. You cannot say that that this is not the entire sample. What is the sample space there? So you have to create an example.
If my mom said like just buy any vegetable you find, and I decide to buy.
No. so the sample space has to be set of all possible events, possible outcomes. The set of all possible outcomes is the sample space. So you have to first define that. What is set of my possible outcomes?
Tomato, potato, brinjal.
Okay. Yeah. So you have to write that, and then you have to find a proper subset of the sample space. So you have to create an event which is not the sample space, but it has probability 1. And that is how you have to define it. So this is homework. And I'll not answer this question. This is homework.
So can I answer your previous homework question? The A intersection B question.
What was that question?
How can you represent A intersection
Oh,
B?
okay. No, you don't have to answer it. Just this is fine. Okay. So you think about it, and if you have found the answer, then this is good. Okay, homework. Because we are running out of time because we may have other class, right? At 10. It's already 9:57. So you have to justify yourself. Okay? Yeah. What is that?
Where will you get this means PPT?
Oh, this handouts. Okay, I will upload it in what is called your MS Team.
Teams.
Yeah, I'll upload it in Teams. Yeah. So then you can